Both sides turning up the noise in an increasingly bitter race for the White House. KTLA's John Fenoglio in the newsroom with more on the campaigns tonight. John.
Micah, polls show Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton with commanding leads in New York. This as the tone of the race reaches a fever pitch before voters head to the polls in just 4 days. Donald Trump doubling down on his attacks against the Republican Party.
The system is rigged, folks.
At a rally in Hartford, Trump again crying foul after his loss in Colorado to Ted Cruz over the rules for selecting delegates.
That delegate system is a disaster, the way they count. It's a disaster and not fair, not good.
Blasting the system and taking aim at Ted Cruz in a scathing op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, writing, quote, "The great irony of this campaign is that the Washington cartel that Mr. Cruz rails against is the very group he is relying upon in his voter nullification scheme. But the Cruz campaign is widely seen as having run a better ground game to win over delegates."
It is not surprising. When a candidate loses 11 elections in a row, he's unhappy about it. And so he complains. And that's fine.
The chairman of the Republican National Committee pushing back at Trump.
Delegates on the floor choose the nominee of the party after being empowered by the voters. This is a very normal system that we've been using for many years.
On the Democratic front,
if you're both screaming at each other, the viewers won't be able to hear either of you.
After their Brooklyn brawl at last night's debate, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are back on the road. Sanders at the Vatican today for a conference on social and economic justice.
In fact, the top 1% of people on this planet now own more wealth than the bottom 99%.
Mrs. Clinton stopping at a senior center in Harlem before heading to California for a series of fundraisers with George Clooney. The race heating up.
That's just not accurate.
I have stood on the debate stage with Senator Sanders 8 prior times.
And becoming increasingly bitter before New York votes on Tuesday. Now, Trump today also picked up the endorsement of the New York Post, the editorial board calling Trump, quote, a potential superstar of vast promise, but making rookie mistakes. Micah?
So, John, we know Trump's upset with the RNC about his loss in Colorado. Walk us through his argument.
Well, Mr. Trump is upset over Colorado's nominating process and the rules for selecting delegates. Now, Colorado did not hold a traditional primary or caucus, but rather a series of conventions that selected individual delegates without voters directly choosing a presidential candidate. Now, those delegates overwhelmingly chose Ted Cruz. And while that system may sound strange, the rules are no secret. Cruz is widely seen as having out-hustled Trump to secure those delegates. Not surprisingly, Trump recently hired a new delegate wrangler and lobbyist named Paul Manafort to make sure his delegates at this summer's convention end up voting for Trump. Micah?
John Fenoglio in the newsroom. Thank you. The business